Okay. And I'm going to put a presentation up on the screen. Let's see if Mike Cassidy got me to do this correctly. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. Just going to stop for 1 minute, and I'm going to make Mike the co-host here, just in case power goes out. And I think we'll be good. And let's just let, is this Tiffany in? Okay. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for being with us tonight. I think just about everyone who's on tonight's call has been part of this process at one point or another over the last really almost 18 months at this point. And as you know, NJCDC has facilitated this process through which we've worked with neighborhood residents here in the Great Falls neighborhood to develop a neighborhood plan, one that really is driven by the interest and wishes and desires of local residents, which has now come together in a draft format. I had sent everyone a link on a couple of occasions to the draft report. And if you look in your latest email, you will see it from earlier today, in case you want to click on it right now. But what we intend to do is not to go through this 100-page report page by page, but instead to provide sort of an overview via this PowerPoint presentation. And so we invite everyone to comment on it as we are going through it, ask any questions that you might have. And this is really the final opportunity, if you will. We are now presenting the plan that hopefully already contains all of the good input that you've given along the way. And it's now compiled, and we're going to tell you the outcome. So our agenda is welcome and introductions. And, I don't know that we need to spend time going around. Everyone's got their name posted. And I think we're fortunate that everyone knows just about everyone else through participation in this process. Safe to say, though, that all of us are interested parties and stakeholders in the improvement of the Great Falls neighborhood. I will just pause and introduce Jason Rowe, who is an honorary member of the neighborhood, who's been our consultant all along from the community strategies arm of New Jersey Community Capital. So Jason, thank you for being with us tonight. And of course, thank you for helping us throughout this entire process. We will begin the review of the neighborhood plan momentarily, and then there'll be an opportunity for any comments, questions, or discussions either tonight, or there'll be a place where you can actually provide it afterwards. The plan is available, as I said, on njcdc.org. Comments can be sent to us at info@njcdc.org. And after the review of the plan, it will be submitted in, actually, it's going to be later this month in November. Now that we're actually in November, to the State Department of Community Affairs for their hopeful approval. And it will then become our official new neighborhood plan for the next 10 years. And we should, I should say, we do intend for it to become a living document so that it is not something that just kind of stays stale, if you will, but one that we can change as conditions in the neighborhood change. With that said, this is the neighborhood. I think we've looked at this map many, many different times. It's got kind of a funny shape to it, but that is the Great Falls neighborhood. You do see the Great Falls right at what I call the epicenter of the neighborhood, and then it fans out in all directions for about 90 different blocks, home to about 14,000 individuals, and also 8,000 students, young people, who either live or go to school here in this neighborhood. That's so central to everything that we do. And you know, why a neighborhood plan? And we've talked about this all along the way. It provides a comprehensive set of strategies to improve a neighborhood, and those strategies are unique to our neighborhood. The strategies that we will be looking at tonight are the result of all of the various conversations we've had, all of your input about what you think are the most critical issues here in our neighborhood and what we want to do about them. It does, of course, provide an opportunity for residents and other stakeholders to have a meaningful voice in what happens here in this neighborhood. It will open up possibilities for funding so that we can actually implement some of the ideas that we've come up with. And while this plan is supported by the city, it is not an official city plan like a master plan or redevelopment area plan. It is, I think the clearest way to say it is the people's plan. It is the plan that the people who live in this neighborhood have devised themselves for the future of their own neighborhood. And I think in many ways that is the best kind of plan. By way of timetable, I think everyone knows it's been, as I mentioned, about a year and a half. We actually started all the way back in January of 2020 in pre-pandemic days to talk about this process. By, I guess, May of that year, or certainly June of that year, we already started holding different meetings. We had 11 different community meetings, and I think in a moment, Eddie will go through those. We had 4 stakeholder meetings and an online survey that had hundreds of responses. And we are now, here we are on November 1st, presenting the draft plan. We will submit it to the state later this month. And by this January, hopefully it will have the state's stamp of approval, and we can begin working in earnest on really all of the good ideas that are contained within it. And so with that, I will turn it over to Eddie at this moment to just ever so briefly remind everyone of the different topics that we've covered. Eddie?
Hello, everyone. Let me just get on the video here. Hello, everyone. So as you know, as Bob has mentioned, we had met with several stakeholders from our community, every professional we can think of our neighborhood that had to do with education, community leaders, advocacy groups. And we have, as you see on here on the list, numerous theme meetings focused on housing and history and culture, parks and recreation, which is always a hot topic in our neighborhood. And all these dates pretty much, you know, most of you have participated in, and we're very thankful for that. And in the next couple of slides, you would see, you know, the result of a lot of these discussions that you have offered, a lot of suggestions and a lot of recommendations that will be put into action through a strategic plan, through activities that we would take on throughout the year to achieve these goals, and some strategies that we had set forth to accomplish the goals that we all have come up to agree upon.
Great. And bear with me, everyone, because my computer is acting up just a little bit. Okay, here we go. And so thank you, Eddie. These are all the different topics. We will not read them one by one, but as you can see, it ranged from discussions about parks and recreation to housing and home ownership, small businesses, schools, crime, public safety, social services, lots of different topics that really sort of blended together, make up the everyday life of those of us who live and work here in this neighborhood. And Eddie, I'll just move forward on this. In addition to those community meetings, we did have meetings with different stakeholder groups, including nonprofit leaders, public officials, including the mayor and several members of his team, property owners, and then we actually had 2 meetings amongst local business owners. And there was a great deal of community and stakeholder engagement. The survey elicited 338 different responses. The steering committee meetings, as we mentioned, the online survey, and in a parcel survey, we had young people, and you see one of them here, take pictures and try and assess every single property in their neighborhood, which you'll also see addressed in the report. So when all is said and done, there were and are 6 different goals of this neighborhood plan. We're going to go through them one by one in a, I think, a pretty quick fashion. But the goals themselves are an empowered community, neighborhood revitalization, education and youth development, quality, affordable housing, vibrant arts, culture, and recreation, and to promote health and well-being. And the first one is an empowered community. I love this picture, by the way. This is a picture of members of the Patterson Youth Council down in Washington, D.C. And this was in the office of Nancy Pelosi. And if you see this guy here in the back, John Lawrence, who born and raised in Patterson, New Jersey, chief of staff to Nancy Pelosi. So you never know, right? And what we're going to do is each goal has a number of different strategies. So you can see strategy 1.1 is to conduct effective and empowering community organizing. We're just going to pick one bullet on each of these to give as an example, rather than going through every bullet on every strategy. So with that, Eddie, this particular goal area is turned over to you. And I'm just going to put everybody on mute, except for the person who is speaking. So if you want to ask a question or want clarification, just unmute yourself. Eddie?
I would also just add that there is a chat room. If you want to add some comments to the chat room, you can do that as well. So as Bob has mentioned, strategy 1 for us is basically kind of like what we're doing now, is really working with the community and engaging them, empowering them to become civic leaders of our neighborhood, because they're the ones who are going to carry out a lot of the things that we're, our goals indicate that we should, based on conversations that we had. So one of the things I look at this list here, and Bob, I know he wants just one, but all this, I would lump it up into one, is really, building capacity amongst our community and facilitating meetings through the Community Advisory Board, where local leaders in our community will engage in, meaningful conversation to always further this plan, but also, keep us to what's relative to you in the neighborhood, and making sure that NJCDC is, engaged in all the things happening. As Bob had mentioned, this is a living document, so things will continue even after this meeting. This plan is not going to be stagnant, as he said, and that will be because a lot of the members that we will encourage to become part of our community advisory board, which will pretty much be the leading group of folks that will, help carry out these tasks as it relates to the community, and also engage in further discussion and dialogue throughout the 10 years to further better develop the neighborhood and engage in things that NJCDC is putting out with different projects and initiatives, and also, reaching out to our neighbors to make sure that they get informed and that we kind of build a community together. So that's the big one here.
Are you guys able to see me advance the slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Bob, you want me to continue?
Yeah, please continue, Eddie, on all of
Okay.
your strategies.
So just leading into what I just said, getting residents to kind of take the initiatives to help us in this program, and getting things off off the ground. We have done many projects in the past. We continue to, to do so moving forward, and is really engaging residents to take the lead, whether it's, local community-led projects. And one of the new initiatives that we're looking at doing is creating a community-led podcast program so that the neighborhood can be engaged in everything that we're doing, get neighborhood folks to come out and participate and share their voice and opinion on matters that are important to them, as well as to the community in general. Things, share information that NJCDC is doing, but also, just honestly get feedback as to what are the things that we're missing and things that we need to continue to do. So this podcast is just another form of outreach and how to engage with the community. So that'll be a new exciting project for us. It'll be the first time that we have this, and we'll recruit some of the youth to get them engaged in this project as well, and community members as well.
And we're hoping to build a little podcast studio as well. So more to come on that. Keep going, Eddie.
Okay, the next slide here is basically just enhancing the neighborhood help center as a community hub. As you all know, here on 32 Spruce Street's first floor is our neighborhood help center, which serves as the central location where families come to give resources and assistance. Especially after the pandemic, we have learned that there's so many things that we should be doing. And, we learned a lot throughout the year or two in reference to how to better utilize technology to communicate with our residents. And we've also learned that a lot of local community members don't have access to internet. So we had kind of created a hybrid model now that things have pretty much opened up somewhat to allowing people to come back into our facilities. We're looking at, relaunching the Neighborhood Help Center with new programming, some, pretty exciting things that are going to be rolling out. We will be putting out a calendar of monthly events and workshops for everyone to engage in. And many of them will also be offered virtually. Like I said, throughout the pandemic, everyone had to learn how to still communicate, and even kids go to school virtually. So that's pretty exciting. We'll continue to use that technology and that method to reach individuals who can't physically come out of their home for whatever reason, but allow them to still participate as we begin to grow the Neighborhood Help Center and bring on new partners to share information with our community. Improving public safety, obviously that's number one in most cases. Working with the Patterson Police Department is key. It's something that has been discussed pretty much in every single meeting. It's tough to get around the neighborhood and feel safe if we don't have enough patrol, enough police officers patrolling our city or our neighborhood. We see panhandlers, we see homeless individuals on the streets, the cleanliness of the streets. So all of that being taken into consideration, we implemented this in the 1.4 strategy. It's something that we're going to work on with the police department, engaging them so we can have a more intentional conversation, more intentional strategy in how to address all those problems that were brought up in the various meetings, and work, and focus primarily on addressing some of those low-hanging fruits, like taking care of the panhandling, making sure that we have visible patrol, and even possibly getting some security or constables hired privately to patrol our streets and our neighborhood, in addition to the Patterson Police Department.
Okay, so that's our first goal and the several strategies that go along with it. Goal 2 is neighborhood revitalization. And remind me, Mike, were you going to take this one?
Yes, I was, Bob.
Okay.
Great. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So under the goal of neighborhood revitalization, we look at ways to bring back the neighborhood physically as well as economically. The first strategy in this area is to support local businesses and commercial corridors. All of these bullets describe the different activities we're going to undertake in line with this strategy. But the major takeaway to sum these bullets up is to really connect with the business owners and get their voice heard and figure out what specific initiatives and working with those business owners is going to hope to support their local businesses, their business facades, and even the physical streetscapes in front of those properties. So that's our strategy 2.1 to support local businesses. The next strategy under neighborhood revitalization is to promote tourism opportunities created by the national park. So obviously we're very fortunate in the Great Falls to have the National Historical Park located within the neighborhood. And there's some opportunity there for local businesses, but also the city to benefit from visitors to the national park who might want to visit those restaurants, that might want to host events. And so this strategy looks at ways that we can promote tourism to the Great Falls and have that spin out towards supporting the local businesses. So this includes everything from connecting the local business owners to the folks at the national park, to also NJCDC supporting upkeep of the national park and physical improvement projects at the national park. Strategy 2.3 is to improve parks and recreational assets in the neighborhood. As you guys know, we've done a number of playground builds. We're currently working on construction of Lucasfilm Memorial Park, which is a project that had the community very much involved. And we recognize that bringing back a neighborhood means having community members participate in improving the parks so that the community members are bought into using those spaces. So this strategy looks at us continuing along the way of building out the open space and park areas within the neighborhood. Strategy 2.4, help residents get access to create jobs. This is really an important part of this, and the reason it falls into neighborhood revitalization is because local residents getting good jobs really supports the local economy, and so we're going to develop youth employment program under this strategy, job training programs, ESL and GED classes, and try and build relationships with the key local employers in the neighborhood.
I'll just highlight what's here off to the side. That we learn median workers' wages in the neighborhood, household wages, are really between $20,000 and $40,000. And we know that median for the state of New Jersey is, I think, in excess of $70,000 and maybe closer to $80,000. So it tells you sort of about the socioeconomic conditions here in our neighborhood.
Strategy 2.5 is to facilitate large-scale strategic economic development projects at key neighborhood sites. So as many of you know, NJCDC has built a number of our own affordable housing projects. In certain scenarios, the projects are of a scale that really makes sense for either a different developer to undertake them or for us to partner with them. Such as the project that we're undertaking at Barclay Street with St. Joseph's Hospital, such as the project at 50 Spruce Street next door to us, which we are considering partnering with another organization to undertake. So in this strategy, we're talking about how we might either attract outside developers to the neighborhood and support them from kind of a ground up community perspective, or actually partnering with outside developers to take on large scale projects. Strategy 2.6 is to implement and improve pedestrian bicyclist safety infrastructure. So this strategy looks at ways to really improve walkability in the neighborhood. As many of you guys know, we have a number of schools in the neighborhood, and students are constantly walking to and from schools or from schools to different places and different programs. And it's important in a heavily, traveled area, vehicular traveled area, that we support pedestrian routes and bicycle routes. So this strategy looks at improving the streetscapes and the sidewalks and the corridors to support pedestrian and bicycle travel modes.
And I'll just note that this is a rendering, which I think everyone's seen before, of the new Spruce Street Bridge, once completed, obviously. It will have 2 lanes in this direction coming down towards the falls and NJCDC, but only 1 lane going sort of towards Wayne Avenue. And part of the reason, as you can see, the sidewalks over here are going to be dramatically expanded so that people can walk along here and see the falls. Goal 3 is education and youth development, and I will take us through this one. We want to expand a full service community schools model. Stated simply, we want the neighborhoods, we want the schools in our neighborhood to open early, close late, be open on weekends and weeknights and during the summer, and offer programming not only to students and parents, but really to members of the community at large. We believe that the school buildings really should serve that broader purpose. And so our intent is to implement the full service community school model at all neighborhood schools. It's already at School 2, School 5, John F. Kennedy, but it's not at schools like School 3, School 19, and 1 or 2 others. And so including the new Taub school, our objective is to expand that model because we know that it works and it works well. 3.2 is to host a broad array of education and youth development programs. In many ways, this is the bread and butter of NJCDC. These are probably 15 to 20 different programs and services, all designed to promote positive youth development, helping young people build on their strengths rather than on their weaknesses. But it also includes some really important institutional objectives, such as helping the Community Charter School of Patterson to expand, to develop arts programming at the new Great Falls Youth Performing Arts Center, as just a couple of examples. Goal 4, quality affordable housing. I think, Mike, that might be you.
Yep. You can go to the next slide, Bob. Thank you. So we kept housing separate from neighborhood revitalization. And while it's a form of neighborhood revitalization, because you're bringing back properties by building new housing opportunities, housing is so important that we wanted to keep it separate and identify it as a standalone goal. So that's what we did here. And so this strategy 4.1 is to develop quality, affordable housing within the neighborhood. This is really a continuation of work NJCDC has done since our first neighborhood plan. We've built a number of affordable and supportive housing buildings. And through this strategy, we're going to continue to do that. We look at both rental and home ownership as the different types of housing we're looking to continue to build in a Great Falls neighborhood. Strategy 4.2 is tenant rights, education, assistance, and advocacy. Separate from the brick and mortar side of this, a lot of tenants in Patterson already are having challenges with their landlord, and they may find themselves coming to NJCDC to seek guidance on their rights. What happens if a landlord is prematurely trying to evict them, or what happens if there are, repairs that are not being completed in a timely manner. And this is kind of a new area for us. We did not really do this as a plain stated strategy in our previous plan. We do this naturally as our own, because we manage our own properties. And so we have to be sensitive to our tenants' needs. And so we've learned a bit in that regard, and we're looking at being able to spread our wings a little bit more. And as community members come into our neighborhood help center, link them with others who work in this specific area to get guidance on those issues. Strategy 4.3 is to promote home ownership. Many of NJCDC's past projects are rental, and we want to make a really focused effort in promoting home ownership moving forward, and that's why this is an important strategy for this neighborhood plan. We will be creating workshops for first-time home buyers, to learn about programs, to learn about, financing around home ownership. We'll continue to research and investigate grant opportunities that would help us to acquire and rebuild homes in order for them to become first-time home ownership projects. So this is a new area for us that we're really interested in developing systems to continue for.
In Goal 5, Vibrant Arts, Culture, and Recreation. Eddie, I believe you're going to take this one.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. As you saw there in that mural, there's one of the murals that was put up here on Oliver Street and Spruce Street by Michael's Energy's factory across from the gas station, which is a very vibrant, few murals that Bob had commissioned to do, which pretty much highlights a lot of the history of Patterson. And I think it's the right place for murals like this to go because, as we all know, this area is heavily trafficked because of the schools and the highways, access to the highways. And I think this just began to kind of spur some thought in how we can, continue to do arts in the city of Patterson, specifically around our neighborhood. And through Dave Thompson, who we commissioned to do a few others, you see there at the Hinchliffe Stadium, unfortunately was just recently knocked down because of the development of Hinchliffe Stadium at the moment. But that was one of the other murals that were put up. And there's a few others going around the city. So the idea here is to simply begin to look at ways to incorporate the arts in the city of Patterson and how we can beautify the neighborhood and incorporate a lot of the different aspects of art, whether it's sculpture, dance, music, things of that nature. In this historic district, how do we incorporate that with the history and what we're trying to do to revitalize the neighborhood? So to elevate the arts as a major driver of neighborhood revitalization, that's one of the strategies. And doing so is, we're going to need partnerships like other, organizations. Art Factory is one, obviously, and so many others that have, dedicated their lives to art and currently live in the neighborhood as artists. So putting together and developing a policy that the city can acknowledge and support, and how do we begin to install these public artwork throughout the neighborhood. And I think that's important because you see other developing cities throughout the state of New Jersey, and those are one of the elements that gives life to those cities. You go to Pennsylvania, PA, there's some beautiful murals. You go to New York City, there's beautiful murals, and even in Newark, here in New Jersey, there's right on Route 20. There's one of the longest strip of murals probably in the state. So Patterson is kind of like lagging a little bit behind, but I think that we have the talent to showcase some really great artwork, sculptures. We have the national park. We have these key areas in our city that gets a lot of traffic. So I think this is one way of promoting Patterson. Again, this is just another shot of that same corner property with the various murals on the windows and some of the folks that were involved in painting that. But again, just to incorporate that culture of bringing artists together to Patterson to showcase their artwork. And I know that many of you have been part of or heard of the Patterson Art Walk in Patterson. They ran it for a few years, and it was a very successful event where we incorporated and partnered with the Art Factory and a few other artists, where they brought artists from outside of Patterson, outside of the state. In fact, some of them came from other countries to participate and bring their artwork and showcased it in many of the mill buildings throughout the city's historic district, so that visitors that came to see the art walk actually also visited the historic sites, and it created a beautiful touring and tourism activity. And unfortunately, even prior to the COVID pandemic, it kind of died out. So one of the objectives here is to bring it back and to kind of bring these partners back together, and also others to take the lead to make sure this is something that's sustainable and that we can support. And that being the case, as many of you know, we discussed this in the past, we are in the middle of developing the Performing Arts Studio. As you see there, Great Falls Art Center. Mike Cassidy, our real estate director, is taking the lead on this project. This project will be a asset to the community. It's located on Main and Ward Street. It's the old Hispanic Presbyterian Church that will be converted into a studio for local community members to perform, their arts, dance, music, and to showcase, the talent of Patterson. Unfortunately, as big as Patterson is, we don't have enough of these spaces made available to the community and to art groups. And I think that we all agree, and based on prior meetings, have discussed that, this was a need. And, Mike, I think you can give the timeline as to when this will be developed. But one of the key things that we have taken away from our meetings is that, we need more spaces available for community folks who can, expand their own personal programming. There's other outside groups that have, young individuals that are participating in their dance groups, but don't have available space, community space to perform or to practice. So this adds value to what we're trying to do with the arts and promote it so that folks have an opportunity to engage and participate and, see the talent that Patterson has to offer. And that said, we have a strategy based on a lot of discussions throughout this process. The lack of recreation, the lack of space for recreation. So as many of you know, Hinchliffe Stadium is underway finally after decades of conversations to rehab the site. It's finally in process, and we're excited about that. And as this begins to happen, we are engaging in something new for NJCDC, which is really getting into the recreation space. And although we have done arts and maybe a few things here or there, I think this is going to be an exciting part of our own expansion, is to really engage in recreation as it relates to creating new opportunities for youth to engage in, whether it be soccer, basketball, or other sports like baseball, and create leagues so that every child has an opportunity to participate and benefit from recreational space. It's not on here, but the community charter school just built a gymnasium here in the area. So we will be, utilizing spaces like that as well to kind of host a lot of these soccer leagues or baseball leagues for practice and for tournaments and things of that nature, really to engage youth in healthy activities. And we'll talk a little bit about health later, but we're partnering with stakeholders to create all of these things and making sure that we have sustainable programming that is an added value to what the city is already offering through their recreation department. But unfortunately, it's just not enough for the demand. So NJCDC will be partnering with all these folks to see if we can lend a hand in giving more opportunities to our youth and adults as well.
And just one of the things I'll briefly expound upon is the last bullet. We have this wonderful new now 60 or $70 million stadium rehabilitation that's going to be going on in our own neighborhood. The entire project is about $100 million, but that includes a new 75-unit apartment building as well as a garage. The stadium, I think, is actually more in the $40 to $50 million range, but what a substantial investment of almost entirely public dollars. And how do we make sure that neighborhood residents, neighborhood children benefit from this beautiful new asset right here in our neighborhood? And that's going to be a part of what we help to figure out. Moving forward, the last goal is to promote both individual and community health and well-being. We intend to do that by promoting access to health services, and that will have us continuing to partner with friends like St. Joe's and the Hackensack Meridian Medical School, and really continue efforts to deal with the crisis of the moment, which hopefully will not be here forever, and that is the pandemic and helping people get through the pandemic. There was conversation about creating an urgent care center here in the neighborhood so that individuals who can't go out on the highways don't necessarily have to go to the emergency room, and also continuing to help with the problem of homelessness. We know that the best way to get homeless people off the street is to provide them with an apartment of their own. NJCDC is working with St. Joe's now to build a 56-unit apartment building. And while not every single homeless person will want that help, a lot will. And we think this is going to make a difference. And then 6.2 is to support healthy lifestyles. And we intend to do this by continuing programs that we've already operated, such as our Parent Academy, so that new first-time parents know what it's like to raise a child, and they learn all about proper infant nutrition and developmental milestones and things of that nature. That our neighborhood health center will continue to do workshops and seminars that focus on health-related topics such as nutrition, mental health, and fitness, and continue with the creation of community gardens. Unfortunately, the largest one that we had is now the site of that new 75-unit apartment building by Hinchliffe, so we're going to have to figure something else out. And really, I think the last two bullets are worth mentioning. Number one of the new things that we're doing is particularly driven by the pandemic. Isolation among senior citizens has never been greater, and we're going to try and link young people with those senior citizens to help address the problem of social isolation, and also understanding that violence, and particularly gun violence, is a public health issue. And if we're going to improve the health and well-being of our community, we must address violence prevention. And that's going to also be part of our programming. And if I'm not mistaken, that completes the 6 different strategies, which I think we did in record time, for which I know everyone is grateful. But what I wanted to do now was open it up and see if there were any comments, suggestions, or questions on what is your neighborhood plan. Remember, this plan reflects 16 or 18 months of different community meetings on a wide range of topics. This is your plan, and this is really a final opportunity for any comments or input. And so with that, I will open up the floor. Does anybody have anything that they would want to say? Hello, everyone. What do you think? Does it capture, do you think, what we've been trying to do these last many months in setting different goals and strategies to address the problems that face us?
Yeah, hold on, am I on mute? No, I'm good.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, so I actually think this is amazing, right? Being able to be a part of this for a little bit over a year now, even through a pandemic, and really being able to see the plan that you've put together. I was reading through the full report earlier today, and I was just amazed at to be able to accomplish a plan like this. And I want to definitely commend you, Bob, Eddie, and the rest of the team at NJCDC, Michael. And I ultimately just want to be able to add that, how can I be of further support and a part of this going forward? I think that this is really just the peak of the iceberg, right? I think the work now is really is what's ahead with some of the challenges that need to be faced to get some of these ideas, some of these thoughts and projects into play. And I really want to be a part of this. And I just want to raise my hand as of right now to let you know that you can come on.
Thank you, Victor. And we have your contact info and we're definitely going to take you up on that. So. Anybody else have anything that they want to comment on, add? Did we miss anything? Did we not emphasize anything to the extent that we should? Any thoughts?
I've got a comment. I think it was I read the entire study, all 130 pages. I think it was unbelievably thorough and comprehensive. There were a couple of statistics I found actually very surprising. One is that the population decreased from 2000 to 2010 and again to 2020. I was shocked that that actually happened. Even if it was a small percentage, it still decreased, which I did not expect. The second thing I didn't expect is that the Asian population increased dramatically over that same period of time. The Hispanic population stayed largely the same. There was a slight decrease. The African American population, I think that actually decreased more than the others, but the Asian increase was, I'm assuming that was all Bengalis, given that there's a fair amount of residents who've come originally from Bangladesh over in the other side of the second ward. But I commend you on compiling those statistics. I will say the one thing I think that should have been emphasized a little more is the aspect of crime, which is it's endemic for the whole. That's the other thing I did find surprising is that the poverty level in the Promise neighborhood, the Great Falls Promise neighborhood, was lower than not only the state, but than the rest of the city of Patterson. I would have put money on the fact that the fourth ward and the fifth ward had much greater poverty levels and much lower income levels, but that does not appear to be the case from the statistics you compiled. Again, I commend you for that because I wouldn't have expected that. Crime is everywhere. The vagrants are just the tip of the iceberg. Obviously, there's violent crime that's coming up all the time. And probably the one thing that wasn't emphasized enough is the DPW doing their actual job, maintaining the actual streets. Each of these things was touched on, and by no means do I want to suggest that any of that was missed in the study. I think it was extremely well done and well thought out. And I think the ideas that were presented were really good, but I would put a stronger emphasis on those two areas, which is no surprise coming from me because that's what I've said at every single meeting of it.
Yeah, I've been consistent, George, and
Yep.
we appreciate that.
And there is one good thing that's happening is all of the new projects that are developing in the area. You could have also mentioned a few more of them. I see that you did mention the Hinchliffe Stadium, which is a big plus. On Wednesday, there's going to be a groundbreaking for the grandparents development. There's another gigantic development that'll vitally change the area. And the visitor center is, once that gets done, assuming that that'll move forward, and I'm sure it will sooner or later, that'll be a tremendous asset to not only the neighborhood, but also the region. It'll be state of the art. I'm really looking forward to that happening.
Well, George, those are all good points, and it's not too late. This is an opportunity for input as well as the other sessions, and so we are recording this and taking some notes. And I think the points that you make are excellent, and I think we should take another look at the area on crime. I think we should make sure that we've incorporated some of those other marquee projects that you mentioned. I think the concept of working more closely with DPW to attend to the sort of, I'll just broadly call it cleanliness issue is really important. And so those are all great suggestions, and we'll look to augment the report in those areas. So thank you, George, very much.
One last piece that's related but unrelated. I did mention the groundbreaking for the grandparents project. That's on Wednesday at noon, and everyone who's attending this meeting is certainly invited.
Oh, wonderful.
It'll
Right
be
there at the site.
the location will be at Patterson's, the Parking Authority Site 15, which is right behind my office at 89 Mill Street.
That's exciting.
It really is exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I can actually, I'll forward the renderings to you for the,
Please.
we'll be there.
And yeah, I'd love to see them, George. Please do. And that's the project that will largely house grandparents who are raising grandchildren, I believe, which
Yes.
is a huge need.
There's actually two not-for-profits. Grandparents is part of that program there, but another part of the program is the not-for-profit Patterson Music Project, which is part of the Wharton Institute. They have ever expanded their presence in the Patterson public school system. And I have to tell you, there's nothing that warms my heart more than when I walk downstairs and I hear violins playing. And it's not from the radio, it's from the place next door. And I see these young inner city kids playing violins and cellos. I've actually gone in there and they've apologized for being so loud. I said, no, make it louder. It's just a wonderful project, program that they do. And the kids in Patterson seem to really be taking to it. Like, again, I was really surprised at hearing it. And seeing the actual results on a daily basis is warming to my heart. I'm glad to see that someone has actually taken a step to do that.
It is heartwarming, George, and I'm so happy to see that program grow. We initially brought it into the Community Charter School of Patterson, and now it is in a number of different schools in Patterson, and so its growth is particularly gratifying.
The two girls who started that, they actually were college roommates, and that's when they came up with the idea. And this was a dream of theirs to do it, and they actually made it work.
No, it's wonderful. It really is. Thank you, George.
Okay, I wanted to say I'm really glad to see that a lot of the projects that we've spoken about for over a year, because I remember being on survey meetings for the for this area for years now. Like for instance, the Lucasfilm Park, it's awesome. It's, you know, coming along. We also, the only problem is that we're having a lot of parking issues in our neighborhood, and we're gonna have even more now that the groundbreaking is going to start on this grandparent building. I know that we need it, but we weren't thinking of, no one seemed to have thought about parking, about the traffic, which we already have a lot of problems with traffic on Van Houten Street. I was hit by a car on my way to one of these community meetings 2 years ago. And it's not any better. They really are driving like it's a highway. And I think that, okay, it's wonderful that we have all these great programs, but the safety of our children in the mornings to cross that street to go to school, you have to wait. And then with all the traffic, everybody's speeding, everybody's stuck, and they're just trying to get out of there as fast as they can. And so I just hope that we can get either security or crossing guards. We're gonna have to amp it up with the security and crossing guards, because it's gonna be really dangerous now when we have this other project coming along as well. The Lucasfilm Park, you got Hinchley Stadium, you got the bridge. Now you're gonna have the grandparents building at every corner, and plus all the schools that are in our neighborhood as well.
You're right. And I think we should really take another look. I don't know if we have traffic calming measures in the report, but I do think that that's a worthy idea. I don't know how much we go into parking either. And, you know, I do know internally, we've long had conversations about the need to strategically build parking decks in an area that would then allow the city to grow. But an important point also to make is to take care of current residents needs as well through additional parking facilities. And so the team and I will take a look at that as well. So thank you, Tammy, for those excellent comments.
Yes, my other worry is the park. Once Lucasfilm Park is opened,
Yeah.
we don't want the homeless to come back and dwell in there. So I'm not sure, is there going to be a gate around it where it's going to get locked up at night? I'm just hoping, being that it's going to be an autism friendly playground there. I don't see why anyone would be there after 6 or 7 or 8 in the park. So I'm just hoping that somehow with the $1 million that were donated for that park, that they can at least protect it so that it can, be maintained and that our children can enjoy it. Because for many years, I've been in this district for 30 something years, and my children never played in that park because, we tried cleaning it up and everything, but it just never ends with the homeless. And it was just a horrible smell. You couldn't even walk your dog around the park because they would yell at you. I mean, there's so many things that have happened with the homeless there. And so it's like, that's the only worry I have right now, is that when that park is finished, how do we keep it from the homeless and the people that are going to be hanging out there? I mean, gangs too, and people selling drugs.
Yes. Well, we understand that that's an important project, not only the physical rehabilitation of the park, but as you say, what happens afterwards. Now, I look always very, very favorably and with great admiration on what a group of committed residents has done with Barber Park over in the 4th Ward. Barber Park was overrun with drug dealers who basically made it theirs, and kids were not allowed to use the park. Well, a group of committed residents got together and they said, no, that's not okay. This is our park. It's the community's park. It's designed for children. And they got together and they put on active programming there all the time. If you're on Facebook, you always see activities that are going on at Patterson's Barber Park. Our challenge is the same thing. Eddie and I and Mike and I have spoken about this. It's not only about getting their rehabilitation done, but what can we do then? And some money will be involved, and we are going to find a way to provide it, to always have activities and make the message clear that this is a park for families and children. The other thing that we're doing at NJCDC is we are looking to hire a overnight security guard to really patrol all of our properties, and we would include Lucasfilm Park in that as well. And if somebody is there every night at 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the morning, telling people that they can't sleep there or whatever we can do that is of course legal, we're going to do that. So point well taken, Tammy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It would be definitely awesome to have security all around. Our neighborhood has changed so much.
Just one piece I might add about that.
Yes, George.
Park. That, from what I remember from past meetings, that used to have an area that was well lit, and it suffered damage during Hurricane Irene, which the city has never actually spent the money to fix. This year, they should be swimming in cash because of all of the money they got from the Fed because of COVID. They could allocate a few dollars to actually put the lighting back in that was damaged during Hurricane Irene. I think that's the least that they could do, or put in different lighting and new lighting, something in order to improve what's there.
That's actually part of the plan. Mike Cassidy, briefly, there are lots of new lights that are going in, correct?
Yes, the scope does include new lighting consistent with the historic district, and then additional flood lighting, which will even be brighter than just the historic lamps there. So that's included in the park build out.
And maybe one sign or two that says the park closes after dark. Then the police would, that probably would then, the police might then have the authority to get rid of the vehicle. Wouldn't solve the problem during the daytime, but at least it would maybe give them the ability to police it at night.
It's a good idea, George. And Mike, we should look as to whether or not the city council would have to pass an ordinance to designate that, and then signage should go up. It's an excellent idea.
That's what the county does for all the county parks.
Yeah.
And they have a sheriff's officer drive around each of the parks right around dusk to make sure everybody is gone.
There was a mention about a bike lane. Is that going to be on the Van Houten Street side? Or is that going to be like, what areas of, are they going to have the bicycle?
That's just Wayne Avenue?
Mike, do you know anything about the bike lanes?
So the strategy around improving like pedestrian movability, including like bicyclists, that's not all the way developed to the point where there's maps with plans showing where the bike lanes will go. It's really, the strategy at this point is just to support kind of that design and visioning process. So I'm not aware of there being specific streets that have been planned out to have bike lanes yet. I know that I think it was talked about in connection with the Wayne Avenue bridge project. And I believe there may be a bike lane existing on McBride that heads out towards Willem Park. But I'm not certain of any other specific like street names with plans for bike lanes yet.
Mike, you're actually right. There's a bike lane already. It starts right about the bridge near the police headquarters and the library at Woodland Park.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason that couldn't be continued all the way down McBride Avenue to at least connect to Wayne Avenue.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
right. To connect it to the falls and that
Right.
entire experience. Yeah.
Those kinds of bike lanes are all over Clifton also.
Yeah.
Some of them parallel the old Morris Canal, and some of them are just part of the Morris Canal Greenway. I mean, I know there is there's a note in the report that I read, which I was very encouraged by, that those kinds of connections to either the Morris Canal or anything as part of the old Great Falls trails, pedestrian and bike connections to those things is a terrific idea.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Hi, everyone. Not to continue with the parks, but we definitely need to give attention to our parks, especially with the maintenance. The past couple of seasons, I've been spending more time seeing the games of all my nephews, because now if I went to one, I have to go to all of them, right? Because if not, I'll be the bad titi, and God forbid I cheer on the wrong team. But bleachers are falling apart. It's just a nightmare. It's actually embarrassing sometimes to sit at these parks and have visitors come over. So we really, really need to give some extra attention to the parks, especially for the kids to play in. The garbage, the grass, bleachers falling apart. So I think we really need to do some extra attention. West Side Park, it's a complete embarrassment. East Side, it's just like, it's mind-boggling that, we're doing so much in certain areas. We're opening business, but we can't keep our parks clean and safe for the kids. It's not really good. And while I'm on the topics of the kids, right, the expansion for the full service for the school, I think it's an excellent idea, especially for parents that work, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and school dismissal is at 2:50. Who's picking up the kids, who are the kids staying with? And in other situations, they have to be left alone, which is not good, right? Because they're still young and they're curious, and it's never safe to leave them home alone. So I think that across the board, anything that's going to help keep the kids in school busy with activities that they can actually enjoy, not only useful for them, but also for safety and, little relief for the parents as well.
Thank you, Lillian. Good comments all the way around. Thank you. Anybody else care to speak to any aspect of the plan? Well, excuse me, if not, obviously it seems insufficient to thank a group of committed, caring, and capable people who have spent the last year and a half working collaboratively to put together a plan that will guide our future for the next 10 years. And, oftentimes plans are created and they sit on a shelf. That's not going to happen here. These are all doable concepts. These are all actionable ideas. And NJCDC, as the organization that is privileged to work with each and every one of you to facilitate change in this neighborhood, is absolutely body and soul committed to working as hard as we can to accomplish as much of what you see in this plan as possible. So your job is to hold us accountable, to work with us, to continue to work with us, to make change, because all of us want to see this be a much better neighborhood, a much better city, but we can only do it if we work like this collectively and collaboratively, and with the concept of transformation at the forefront of our minds, not only saying the word transformation, but believing that we can achieve it. And it's really on that note that I would once again thank all of you. The report, we'll make some modest changes as a result of tonight's conversation. Those changes will be reflected on our website as we update the plan. And we will then, as I said, submit it to the state sometime within the next several weeks. Hopefully by the start of the new year, the state will have given it their blessing, and then we will publish it. And we're going to publish it in a little sort of a more reader-friendly version. Not that there's anything wrong with the wonderful job that Jason did on the report as it's now posted, but we're going to pretty it up a little bit, and we're going to make people want to read it because the content is compelling, and we want as many people as possible to really read it. With that, I'll say thank you once again, and good night, Great Falls neighborhood. Bye-bye.
Good night, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Everyone, thank you, thank you, thank you.